Tulsa King Season 3 has wasted no time in shaking things up, and with its very first episode, it may have just introduced the scariest villain Dwight Manfredi has ever faced. If there's one thing fans of the show know by now, it's that every season brings a new rival, a new threat, and another figure ready to test Dwight's patience, loyalty, and criminal empire. We saw it with Kalen Waltrip and his biker gang in Season 1, then again with Jackie Ming, Chicky Invernizzi, Bill Bevilacqua, and finally Cal Thresher in Season 2. Each of these characters pushed Dwight into new battles and escalated the violence around Tulsa. But Season 3 is different because with the introduction of Jeremiah Dunmire, played by Robert Patrick, Tulsa King has finally given Dwight a villain who is terrifying right from the start, and whose presence threatens not just Dwight, but the entire crew connected to him. Unlike previous antagonists who needed several episodes to establish their danger, Dunmire sets the tone immediately in the Season 3 premiere, and it's already clear that he could surpass every villain who came before him. To understand just how much of a game-changer Jeremiah Dunmire is, it helps to look back at how previous villains were introduced. In Season 1, Kalen Waltrip was the first major antagonist, and while he was dangerous, his arrival wasn't exactly intimidating. Waltrip was revealed when one of his own men blew himself up, an introduction that showed recklessness more than true menace. Dwight eventually dismantled his biker crew, and while the conflict was violent, Waltrip himself never had the commanding presence of someone who could destabilize Dwight on a personal level. Then came Season 2, where Jackie Ming and Chicky Invernizzi both stepped into the spotlight. Jackie was positioned as a dangerous rival, but his story ended almost as quickly as it began. Chicky was more compelling as a member of the powerful Invernizzi crime family, but his downfall came in the heat of the war between Dwight and Cal Thresher, leaving little room for long-term intimidation. Cal Thresher himself, played by Neil McDonough, was a businessman-style villain, dangerous because of his influence and money, but not terrifying in the way someone like Jeremiah Dunmire already is. Even Bill Bevilacqua, who was instrumental in Jimmy the Creek's death, made his entrance on horseback, which hardly carried the same weight as what we see with Dunmire in his very first appearance. The Season 3 premiere wastes no time in showing us exactly who Jeremiah Dunmire is and why he should not be underestimated. Unlike the flashy or business-like introductions of past villains, Dunmire is presented as a man who lives and breathes brutality. The very first time we see him, he is making alcohol by hand, a subtle nod to his background as a liquor magnate and a traditionalist who takes pride in his roots. But immediately afterward, the tone shifts into something far darker. Dunmire orders his men to beat Theo Montague, kill him, and then burn his house to the ground. There's no hesitation, no dramatic buildup, just raw violence that sends a clear message to anyone watching. Jeremiah Dunmire doesn't just want power, he enjoys the destruction that comes with it. This makes his introduction far more terrifying than any villain we've seen before. Waltrip came across as a weasel, Thresher as a businessman, Jackie and Bill as standard mob bosses, and Chicky as a volatile heir to a crime family. Dunmire, however, feels like something else entirely, a psychotic traditionalist covered in tattoos who would kill a man simply for disrespecting him. He's not just another rival, he's the embodiment of chaos, wrapped in an intimidating presence that dominates every scene he's in. What sets Dunmire apart from every other villain is not just his brutality, but also his personal connection to Dwight's inner circle. This is where Season 3 immediately gains an advantage over the storytelling of earlier seasons. In the past, most of Dwight's villains were external threats, bikers, rival mob bosses, businessmen, who had little personal connection to Dwight's closest allies. Their deaths often left little emotional fallout, which is why so many of them felt disposable once their arcs ended. With Jeremiah Dunmire, the writers have ensured that the threat isn't just to Dwight, but also to the people he depends on. In the Season 3 premiere, we learn that Mitch, Dwight's loyal partner from the beginning, has a history with Dunmire and knows all too well about his violent strong-arm tactics. This history is compounded by Mitch's romantic relationship with Cleo, the daughter of Theo Montague, the man Dunmire had brutally killed and whose home was burned down in that shocking scene. That connection makes the conflict deeply personal. For the first time in the series, Dwight isn't the only one with something at stake. Mitch is directly tied to the villain's actions, and because of that, Dunmire has the power to fracture Dwight's crew from the inside. The difference this makes cannot be overstated. In Season 2, Bill Bevilacqua's men did kill Jimmy the Creek, which was one of the few deaths that carried lasting weight into Season 3, especially through Bodhi's grief and rage. But even then, that tragedy didn't hit until late in the season, and the emotional fallout is only now being explored. With Jeremiah Dunmire, the impact is immediate. In just one episode, his violence has already set Mitch on a collision course with Dwight's authority. Mitch will want revenge for Theo's death and for Cleo's grief, and this could cause tension in how Dwight tries to manage the conflict. Unlike previous seasons where Dwight was the sole target of his enemies, Season 3 has positioned Dunmire as a villain who can tear the entire crew apart, not just by threatening Dwight's empire, but by striking at the personal lives of those closest to him. Looking back at the way Tulsa King has structured its seasons, this feels like a deliberate correction to earlier patterns. Season 1's conflict with Kalen Waltrip and his biker gang was intense, but it always felt like an outsider problem, something Dwight had to handle alone, with little personal stake for his crew. Season 2 escalated things by bringing in multiple villains, including Jackie Ming, Chicky and Bernizzi, Bill Bevilacqua, and Cal Thresher, but even then, much of the story was about power grabs and territory. The only personal impact came with Jimmy's death, and that was relatively late in the game. Season 3 is different because Dunmire's introduction ties him directly to Mitch, who has been with Dwight from the very beginning. That connection means that everything Dunmire does will reverberate through Dwight's closest circle, making the stakes higher than ever. By positioning Jeremiah Dunmire as a psychotic, unpredictable, and deeply personal threat, Tulsa King Season 3 is setting itself up for more intensity than the show has ever seen. Even though we've only had one episode with him so far, his presence has already eclipsed past villains in terms of menace and unpredictability, where Jackie Ming felt disposable, where Chicky felt unstable, and where Cal Thresher felt like a calculated businessman. Dunmire feels like a monster who thrives on violence for its own sake. That difference makes him scarier, and it makes the story more compelling, because there's no telling how far he's willing to go. If the first episode of Season 3 is any indication, Jeremiah Dunmire could end up being the most dangerous antagonist Tulsa King has ever produced. He's not just a rival mob boss or a businessman with power. He's someone who brings fear into every room he enters, and he already has a personal connection to Dwight's most trusted ally. That means the threat is no longer just about Dwight holding his empire together. It's about whether he can keep his family, his partners, and his crew from collapsing under the weight of Dunmire's chaos. And that is a storyline that promises to make Season 3 more intense, more personal, and ultimately more unforgettable than anything that's come before.